So, what happens when you take the world's oldest form of inquiry, philosophy, and you point it right at one of its newest and most exciting sciences, biology? Well, you get some of the biggest, most mind-bending questions imaginable about what life is and what it even means to be alive. So, let's dive right in and explore this amazing world of the philosophy of biology.
To really get our bearings here, we need a mission statement. And honestly, this quote from the philosopher Wilfrid Sellars is pretty much perfect. The whole point of philosophy, when you boil it all down, isn't to be confusing. It's to build one single, coherent picture of reality. It's this grand project of figuring out how everything, from tiny atoms to giant societies to our own ideas, all connect.
And if that's the goal, to see how it all hangs together, then there's just no way you can ignore the science of life. Biology isn't just another topic in a textbook. It's a massive, absolutely critical piece of the puzzle of who we are and the world we live in. So, how does philosophy actually get its hands dirty and engage with all of this?
Well, to answer that, we first have to zoom out a little and look at philosophy's goal when it connects with any science. It generally plays two really distinct but super important roles.
Okay, so the main role we're going to focus on today is what's called the integrative role. This is exactly what Sellars was talking about, that huge project of connecting the dots from every field of knowledge to create that one single, coherent picture of everything.
So, to actually build that big picture, philosophers have a kind of framework for looking at science. You can think of it like having two different lenses, and each one gives you a totally unique perspective on biology.
And this gets us to the real heart of the matter. When a philosopher biologist sits down to work, what are they actually doing? I mean, how is their approach different from a biologist in a lab? It all comes down to which one of those two lenses they're looking through.
The best way to get this is with a really simple analogy. On the one hand, you've got the philosophy of science. This is where science itself is the thing being studied. Think of it as looking at the microscope. You're examining its assumptions, its methods, its core concepts. But on the other hand, you have the philosophy of nature. Here, you're using science as a tool to understand the world. You're looking through the microscope to see what it tells you about reality.
Okay, let's make this totally concrete. Using that first lens, the philosophy of science, a philosopher looks at biology and asks about its basic structure. For instance, physics is built on these ironclad laws, right? Like gravity. But does biology have laws in that same universal sense? Or is it a science that's mostly about exceptions and historical accidents? That's a classic philosophy of science question.
Now, let's switch to that second lens, the philosophy of nature. Here, we're looking through the lens of biology to answer a much bigger question. We use evolutionary theory as a resource, and we ask, hey, is there even such a thing as a fixed human nature? Or are we just products of our culture? See the shift? We're not analyzing the science anymore. We're using its discoveries to understand ourselves.
And this is where it gets really fun. Because once you start using these two lenses, you start uncovering some of the most profound and just plain fascinating puzzles that modern science has to offer.
Okay, take this one. We all talk about species, lions, tigers, and bears. But are they real things, like actual categories carved into nature? Or are they just convenient labels that we humans made up to organize the messy, interconnected web of life? This is a perfect example of looking at science and questioning the very concepts biologists use every single day.
Or how about genes? The whole idea of the selfish gene is famous, right? But is that really the right way to look at evolution? Does natural selection work for the good of the gene, the individual organism, or maybe the whole group? Which lens you choose here fundamentally changes how you see the entire story of life.
And this one is a classic. We say the purpose of the heart is to pump blood. The function of the eye is to see. But wait a minute. In a purely mechanistic universe, a world of just cause and effect with no designer, what could words like purpose and function possibly mean? It is a huge philosophical puzzle that sits right at the intersection of both lenses.
Now, something that's really crucial to get is that these modern puzzles didn't just pop up out of thin air. They have deep historical roots, and they've actually evolved right alongside our scientific understanding of life. Let's do a quick flyby of that history.
So for centuries, Aristotle's idea of a ladder of nature, a fixed hierarchy from lower to higher life forms, pretty much dominated all of Western thought. Then, boom, in 1859, Darwin comes along and completely shatters that ladder, replacing it with a branching tree of life.
Later in the 20th century, the modern synthesis brilliantly merged Darwin's ideas with genetics. And then, finally, the 1953 discovery of DNA's structure gave us the molecular code for all of it. The key thing here is that each of these steps wasn't just about adding new facts, it was about fundamentally changing the questions we could even ask in the first place.
Okay, so let's pull this all together into a practical toolkit for you. First, always keep that big picture goal in mind. How does all this stuff hang together? Second, be really clear about which of your two lenses you're using. Are you looking at the science or through it? And third, once you have that framework, you are ready to start tackling biology's great puzzles all on your own.
So the real takeaway here is this. You're not just a passive observer anymore. You now have the basic conceptual tools of the philosopher of biology. The only question left is, with this brand new toolkit in hand, which of life's deepest and most compelling questions are you going to explore first?